Hi, I am Sheetal Raut. On behalf of organizing committee, once again I welcome you all for this post-lunch session. The current track is Computing Education Research in India Part 2, and we have respected our Venkatesh sir as a as a session chair. Let me introduce him to all of you. R. Venkatesh is a chief scientist at TCS Research and head to the verification and validation program. He has been with TCS for more than 25 years, working in the area of software development, formal methods, and verification. During his tenure, he has led several tool development projects, including TCS ECA, a static analysis tool that is sold commercially by the company. Other tools include Mastercraft and more. Recently, a formal specification notation called EDT. So I welcome you, sir, and hand over the session to sir for further processing.
Yeah, hi. Thank you. Thank you for the kind introduction. So in this session, we have 4 presentations. Each will be of 15 minutes duration with the 5 minutes for question and answer. The first one is on experience on writing research papers by Kavya Alse. Second is for generation of syntactically incorrect programs by Ramyani Ghosh. And then the third is collaborative classroom by Yash Patil and his team. And the final one is automatic evaluation of SQL queries by Bhumika Shah. So we'll start with the first presentation. Kavya, I hope you're ready. Yeah, so I'm handing it over to you.
Yes,
So
sir,
15 minutes presentation and 5 minutes for question and answers.
sure. I just want to check if my screen sharing is working.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, can you see my screen?
It's starting to share.
Okay.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this talk on writing computer education research papers. I am Kavya Alse. I'm doing PhD from EdTech IIT Bombay, and I'm about to graduate. During this journey, I have tried to write papers and get them published in the domains of both educational technology and computer science education research. And in this talk, I want to share my experiences of writing papers with you all. Uh, the outline for this talk is how do we in our department usually plan and write a paper, and I want to add some of my reflections in the end. Let us consider a context. Consider this example of GA Tutor. GA Tutor stands for Greedy Algorithm Tutor. It was a tool built by two MTech students from computer science department at IIT Bombay. So the aim of this tutor is to teach some of the greedy algorithms like Dijkstra's, Prim's, Kruskal's, etc. In a way that allows students to discover an algorithm, not just uh, learn the algorithm. It follows this principle of guided discovery. So when let us see a little bit about greedy algorithm tutor. Uh, the context here is single source shortest path algorithm. When the student wants to learn more about this, initially the tutor gives her a question like this. Will you be able to design the minimum distance path from hostel to any place on the campus? And here is a map of the campus and the distance from uh, two places in the map. So the students have to start selecting uh, these routes by clicking on them, and they have to select all the nodes, all the places on the map, so that the distance is minimum from a given place to the starting place. So when they have attempted, they can click on done and get feedback. So here we can see that the student has not selected three places. So it is saying that you need to select a path covering all the vertices. And if the student had selected all the vertices, but the map was not optimized, as in it contained non-minimal paths, then it would have said that you have generated paths which are not minimal distance. So they get 2-3 attempts to solve this problem, and then they are asked to start learning about this. When they click on start learning, it asks them some questions. So what they do while solving this problem and reading this feedback is they get to discover the rules of solving this problem. And then after that, when they start answering the question, it allows them to design the whole algorithm in a step-by-step manner. So this is about GA Tutor. This was the tool available, and we wanted to see, can this tutor assist students in learning algorithms? So we wanted to conduct a study for this purpose and write a paper. So what we do while trying to write a paper and conducting a study is we have a set of templates and we follow them. I'll give the link for the templates in the end. The first of those templates is idea generation template. And some of these questions might be familiar to you from yesterday's workshop. So while you are trying to conduct a study, the first thing you ask is, what teaching learning problem are you trying to solve? And what is your idea to solve the problem? So the template has not just these questions, but also examples from different contexts and some partial answers to some questions that help you in answering. So at the end of this phase, what we understood was we identified that there were existing tools to teach algorithms, and even in the context of greedy algorithms. But this discovery approach of teaching algorithms or making students to discover an algorithm by themselves is unique. And this strategy of giving them immediate feedback, specific feedback to that context while they were trying to discover the rules, this was unexplored in this context. So we identified what is already existing in this space, and we also identified what is unique in our approach. After that, the second template is study planning template. That is when you actually plan the details of how to evaluate a tool or how to conduct a study. And this template has questions like, what will be your research design to evaluate this? And if you have developed a tool, how will you evaluate it? And what research design is suitable for your solution? How will you select sample for your study? And what is the detailed procedure of study? What will you test first? When will you do an interview, for example? Things like these. And here also it has examples and very detailed step-by-step scaffolds to plan a study. And after trying to fill this template, we refined our goal to teach algorithmic thinking to computer science education students. And we wanted to evaluate GA Tutor on the basis of this goal. How successful is it to teach algorithmic thinking? And we wanted to find out what are the effects of this discovery approach of learning and designing algorithm, and what are the effects of immediate and specific feedback on the students. So this is just a broad outcome of study planning template I'm showing. We actually had a very detailed study plan, but according to Murphy's law, things do not work as planned. We found that on the first session, student actually bunked the study. We wanted to do a study with 3 or 4 of them, and all of them bunked. And we also found that some students were gaming the study in the sense that they were looking at somebody else's answer and then trying to do that. They were not working on their own. And we found that the audio recorders we were using while interview, there was some problem in a particular setting, and submit buttons in some survey was not working. So there were all sorts of unexpected things. So a reflection at this point is to do one or more pilot studies, and to expect that you cannot use any of the data from this pilot study. Uh, Pilot studies are just to make sure that everything is working as you are planned, and to change. For example, you have allotted 30 minutes for interview, and you see that you want to talk more to students in pilot, so that you can extend that 30 minutes to 45 when you are doing the actual study. And have backups for electronic things, especially like battery for your recorders, another hard disk, etc., question papers, things like that. And also to have alternative things. For example, if you wanted to show them, if you wanted them to answer an online survey, but they were not able to connect to the internet, there were some issues with network connectivity. So keep a offline printed question paper ready. So lessons like these are learned in the pilot study. And the main thing that I want to focus here is asking for help from others. This is not just while you're doing the study, but this is very, very important right from the beginning, right from the planning of the study and doing the study, and also in writing papers. So after we had this plan and we did the study, then with the data we had, we started filling the paper planning template. So paper planning template has questions like these. What is your data analysis technique for the data you have? What are the results? And what can you infer from the results about your research questions, etc. And what we identified was there was no significant difference between the groups. We had two groups, one who worked with GA Tutor, and the other group was given presentations and videos and algorithm visualizations. So there was no significant difference between the groups when they were asked to solve another problem like the example problem I showed earlier. But we wanted to, but when we digged in and saw the compared these two groups based on how successful are they in coming up with a new algorithm, new greedy algorithm for a new problem, we found that the students who worked with GA Tutor showed promise in coming up with in designing some version of an algorithm. Okay, so these were the results that we obtained. And then the last template is paper writing template. This is probably the simplest of all because it has the details of what sections a paper will have and what do you have to write in each of those sections. And it also has link to other templates that I told you about. IPT stands for idea planning and SPT is study planning. So it also points you to what you have already worked, and based on those things, you can fill in this paragraph. So this is how we write a paper. So another criteria that you have to consider while writing a paper is to know which conference or which journal you are writing it for. For example, this GA Tutor paper, we wanted to submit it to T4E conference, that is Technology for Education conference. And based on that, you'll have to focus more on the description of the tool that you are using, or the description of the participants, the analysis of the result, or the theoretical basis of your tool. So the weightage you give to each of these components of a paper depends on the type of conference or journal you are attempting to write. And one more bottleneck there is the number of pages that is allowed. So journals usually are a little flexible in their page limits, but conferences are very strict about the page limit, and if you overshoot them, it is usually hard to cut the sections and bring it back to the required page limit. And here, the most important thing again is to get your paper reviewed from your co-authors, from your colleagues, uh, and people in the domain, uh, because not just uh, they given they help you in rectifying any errors that might be there, but it also uh, gives you some confidence while you have already presented one version of paper to your colleagues, and you have gotten a review from them, and uh, it's it's that much less less erroneous when you are submitting it. So the broad takeaway here is paper writing doesn't start when you have completed the study and you have the data in your hand, but it starts much before, while you're planning the study, or even before developing a tool or strategy. And two things that that has helped me personally and people in my department while writing papers are writing clubs and writing buddies. So writing club is like a slot we fix twice a week, once every day, or thrice a week, whatever is comfortable. And in that slot, maybe 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hours, uh, we just dedicate it to only writing. You are not even supposed to go and look out for literature, read it and analyze it. That you are supposed to do it beforehand, and in that 1 hour, 2 hours, you are just supposed to write something, write paper. And writing buddies are so in our department we pair up with somebody who is aware of uh, all the details of what paper you're writing, what stage you are in, and they are supposed to pitch in and
Kavya?
ask you, hey, have you completed writing this section? Hey, are you stuck? Things like that. So we have
Kavya,
found
sorry to
that.
interrupt, but you have 1 minute.
Okay, yeah, this is my last but one slide, I guess. Yeah, so we have found that having writing buddies who will sort of remind you to write and push you to write um, helps you in completing papers before the deadline. Uh, and these are sort of lessons learned from the reviews that I got from paper submissions. So there was one paper where I was trying to explain two things. I was writing a paper on troubleshooting and computational thinking, but the space available was less. So the reviewers felt that I have not explained both of them in as much as detailed as expected. So focus on one thing in a paper, and don't try to fit in all you know in the paper. And some of the reviews might be very useful to you in the sense that they actually tell you, the analysis here seemed to be a little vague. Why don't you give examples? Or you can follow up this analysis with another triangulation. And some of them are not so useful in the sense that they just tell you that your paper is accepted or not. And yeah, new ideas, you also get new ideas for doing future work related to your tools or strategies from the reviewers. Yeah, thank you. You can reach out to me or anyone from my department if you want to write papers in educational technology or computing education research. And all these templates that I was talking about, those templates are available in the link. I'll paste this link later in the chat section. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Kavya. Nice slides and nice images. Any of you have questions, you may post them on the Q&A or the chat box. In the meantime, Kavya, so one of the, I have a couple of questions. One is, how did you get the idea of doing a tutor?
So this tutor was already developed when I had joined the department. So this tutor was already there, and I was trying to explore what I could do with this tutor to computer science students. So yeah, I didn't develop the tutor, if that is what you are asking.
Yeah.
But
right.
okay.
And yeah, I was asking, how did you get the idea, more importantly, of whatever you worked on?
Yeah, so I started with this broad idea of teaching greedy algorithms in this approach. And while I was looking for what studies have been already done, I saw that algorithm visualizations have been used, and things like role play in classrooms, all such things were done while in the context of teaching algorithm. And then I was while reading those papers, I was able to get nuances of this tool, where this is different from the other tools, and where will such scaffolding help. And that is where I wanted to look deeper while I did the study.
Yeah, there is another question on what advice do you have for researchers who get their papers rejected?
Try again, because most of the times conferences reject papers for all sorts of reasons. I have had experience where me and many of my colleagues in the lab, many of our papers were rejected just because that at that time there were too many submissions in the conference, and there was not enough space to accommodate everyone's paper. So try again, and usually there will be good reviewers who would have suggested what is missing in the paper, what needs to be improved, and work on that, and send it to the same conference again, or a different conference.
Yeah, thanks. So again, Kavya, for a very nice talk. Yeah.
Thank you.
On to the next presentation, generation of syntactically incorrect programs. Ramyani Ghosh.
Hi, good afternoon, and thank you, sir. I'll be sharing my screen. Is this audible?
No.
Okay.
You are.
Right.
But like someone said yesterday, you have to tick some 2 boxes when you share a screen for video.
Right.
So there is optimize for something and use computers.
Good afternoon. Our project is the language agnostic generation of syntactically incorrect programs. We are Ramyani Ghosh, Rasya Ramesh, V.S. Meghna, and N.S. Kumar. We are from the Computer Science Department of PAS University. So the introduction is, the motive behind our project is taking into consideration the current pandemic situation, the increased importance of online education that comes with it, and also a growth in the demand for self-learning tools. So the problem that we've tackled with our project is the learning of syntax of a new programming language for students.
Our main goal is to introduce syntax errors in program segments. We do this by generating a program to inject syntax errors, thereby creating mappings of correct to incorrect program segments. Eventually, we will generate a repository. We are providing a tool for users to learn how to debug syntax errors, and we make program synthesis language agnostic. That is, it should work for any program given the grammar of that particular language. We have 3 kinds of user profiles. First, would be novice programmers who are learning syntax of various languages, who can learn to debug syntax errors, and who are studying common programming examples. Our second user profile would be academia, basically teachers and professors. They can generate question papers, use this tool to test students, and also evaluate learning patterns based on the corrections they get. Our third user profile would be program synthesis enthusiast. As we are providing a repository, they can use this to study common syntax errors, and they can use the dataset for reverse process, that is correction of syntax errors in programs. Ply is Python Lex and Yak. It is a Python implementation of compiler construction tools Lex and Yak. Lex is used to tokenize an input string. For instance, plus is tokenized as an operator. For is tokenized as a keyword. Yak implements the parsing component of Ply, which takes the nodes and converts them into a parse tree. This is our architecture where the input is grammar for a language and syntactically correct program, and we give out syntactically incorrect program. The first step of the program is taking the grammar for a particular language X and automatically generating a Ply program out of it, which gives out Ply actions. This generated file will take the syntactically correct program segment, parses the input, gives out parse tree, and generates errors, thereby generating a syntactically incorrect program. These are the following modules. The first module is grammar to Ply, which takes the grammar in text file as input and generates a Python file from the input grammar. It generates the relevant tokens and converts grammar rules into appropriate Python Ply action functions. This makes the application language agnostic.
So for example, here we have a sample conversion from an input grammar file to an output Ply program, which is generated from the given grammar file. So let's say this is the grammar for a simple arithmetic expression. So the basic building blocks of the arithmetic expression are what we call tokens. These are the operators we see here, like plus and minus and the equal to symbol, and numbers, which are basically the integer values. So the grammar rules that form the expressions are given here. We start from a start symbol and then break it down eventually into expressions and various combinations of expressions operated with terms that finally give you a resulting expression. The basic units here are the numbers or the tokens. So this grammar is then fed into our program generator. Our program generator then generates a Ply program, basically converting this information that we have in our grammar file into functions and lists that Python Lex and Yak recognize. So here we have the tokens converted into a list, and we have some functions defined for numbers as well as the grammar rules, such as we see here. This is for the plus expression. So the grammar rule is defined here, and then we form our parse tree eventually, which is what is used to play around with and generate errors. This is how we use the grammar of any programming language and use that to parse any given input in that programming language.
The second module is Ply Parser, where it parses the input code segments, generates the LALR tables, and forms parse trees of nodes containing the program elements or tokens. For example, if we have an input like a plus b plus c and the equivalent grammar is e equals to e plus c, e equals to a or b or c, this is the parse tree which is generated, where if we take the yield of the tree, that is the leaves of the tree, we get a plus b plus c. Third module is generating the errors from this tree, where we modify the parse tree to produce the errors. We inject the corresponding erroneous code segments into files, and we keep note of these errors for later use. And this generation can be done in three ways. First is removing a node. For example, if we remove c from the last leaf, we get a plus b plus. Or we can insert a redundant node, where if we add a minus before plus, we get a minus plus b plus c. Third way could be replacing a node, where we can replace minus with @ so it becomes a plus b @ c. This is our error generation algorithm. We have tried to mimic the way a user makes errors. For replace conditions, we have divided the tokens into different containers like brackets, selection keywords, loop keywords, arithmetic operators, equality operators, and so on. We have replaced brackets with other brackets, selection keywords with other selection keywords, loop keywords with other loop keywords, arithmetic operators, equality operator symbols with other symbols. And for reserved words like int void, we have generated misspellings. For example, void will be replaced with VIOD. An opening bracket will be replaced with a closing bracket. If will be replaced with another selection keyword like switch, and so on. For add, we have duplicated brackets and symbols right after another. And to introduce randomness into the tool, we have arbitrarily duplicate other nodes right after another. For example, we have an extra bracket after the last one. So we have different erroneous programs generated from a single input file. For example, if we have a factorial function in Python, with one correct code, we can generate multiple erroneous codes. So the first error code has a bracket missing after n and a semicolon missing after for statement. And for the second erroneous code, we have an extra bracket here and an extra semicolon here. This is our repository. Our directory structure, we have programs. Under programs, we have languages like Python and C. Under each language, we have different categories like data structures, recursion. Under each categories, we have input programs and the output programs. Input programs contain the correct programs, and the output programs are the ones generated by our tool with injected errors. This is our final repository which we have created after testing. It contains the language, the category, the program name, and the percentage of errors we want to inject with the correct input file and the multiple erroneous files beside. For application interface, we have two types of users, student and teacher. For student, we provide a user interface where the user can choose language, category, and the program. The editor will display the error code, and user can make corrections and submit his code. Program evaluates and displays score. This is our scoring system where we take the number of corrected errors by total number of errors into 100. Basically, we give a percentage of the corrected errors. The other module is personalized statistics, where we take the user login and scores are stored in database and shown in history, and we also provide visualizations of performance. We have two databases, users and submissions. The other user type is teachers. They can use question paper generator, where they can choose a number of sets of papers and can select the input questions and upload them, and later download the generated papers, which are basically error injected programs. The features we have are statistics and analysis. Basically, we give performance analyzed from submissions. For example, score over time and number of submissions in each category and average scores in each category. We have question paper generator, where the required number of question papers can be given and they can download the papers. Basically, same programs with different errors. We'll be showing more in the demo.
So this is our login page. Now I'm going to enter my username and password and log in. So this is our home page where we're presented with a text editor. So first what I'm going to do is choose the difficulty. So this is basically the percentage of errors that will be introduced in my program. Then I can choose a language from either Python or C. So let's say I choose Python, and then these are the categories of programs we have. So if I want to solve a recursion program, I select recursion and then one of the programs that are present under it. So now recursive factorial is the correct program that has been input to our program, and then a bunch of error files have been generated. So let's say I select one of these error files. Now the error file is then displayed in our text editor, where we can correct the syntax errors that have been injected into the correct program. So I see there's an extra colon here. I'll get rid of that. There's an extra colon here. And so let's say I don't correct all the errors and then I submit it. So here, this is the correct solution displayed right next to the error program. So I can see the errors that I have corrected and the errors that I have missed. And here, this is the score that has been awarded based on the number of corrected errors out of the total errors that had been injected into the program. And these are the errors that I had missed out on. So line number 5, there's a bracket missing here. So similarly, these are the other error messages that have been generated. I can also, let's say now I wish to solve a program in C, and I'll choose a pretty simple program here. So I'm going to try correcting all the errors that are present here. So there's a missing bracket here, and so this is checkout, so there's a missing modulus symbol. So I've corrected the errors that I think, and so all of the errors have been corrected here. The line numbers are given as well, so I scored 100%. So similarly, if I correct no errors at all, let's say another program in Python, so I'll do the HCF program and choose any one of the erroneous programs that have been generated. If I submit it without making any changes, I see that all of the errors have been missed, so the score is 0%. I can now go to my stats and see the history of all the programs that I had just solved. So the time is given as well, the time of submission, and the scores as well. Then I can view some statistics, so we visualize your performance based on like each user's submissions and history. So we have bar graphs that show the average scores for Python and C programs that have been submitted. And this is another visualization over time. So yeah, these are the statistics that have been generated based on every user's history. We also have some other tabs here for feedback and to contact one of us, the developers.
Generate question paper feature where teachers and professors can set the number of papers. So I would put 3, so we'll get 3 sets of papers. They can choose any syntactically correct program, so I would choose one of the Python programs, and they can add more files. So I would add one more file, and they can finally click on submit. You can see we have 3 sets ready. You can download them all in a zip file, or you can individually download by just clicking on them. Now if you want to see these files, so you can see how this is the first set where you can see the question number 1 is this. All the question numbers are same, but they have different errors. So this is how we have different errors in each program.
So using our code that generates syntax errors within a correct input program, we've created this repository of a number of programs in different languages such as Python and C, which have the input file, which is a correct program, mapped to multiple versions of erroneous programs. So here's, for example, we have an example of Python. Under data structures, there's a binary tree size program.
1 minute.
This is the percentage errors.
Yeah, we're almost done.
That we're injecting into this program. So here is the correct input file. And then we have numerous versions of the input file with errors introduced into it. For example, you see here the colon is missing, and so on. So we have this huge data set that we have created in languages such as Python that we see here, and C as well, like we see here. So this repository can further be used to maybe train a machine learning model that can correct erroneous programs which are present in these fields and revert to the correct program. So basically by automatically correcting syntax errors.
For further enhancements, we can use ML on repository as dataset for correction of syntax errors. We can provide an alternative scoring system. We can allow users to save the state of their edited code between different sessions, and can also introduce semantic errors. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramyani. A nice talk and a very smooth flow. There is one question. Syntactic errors are typically recognized by IDs. They spot it immediately and show it to you. But logical errors are more interesting. So can your tool be extended to output programs with logical errors? Have you thought of that?
Yeah, so the thing
Okay.
about,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Ramyani, go on. It's fine.
Yeah, so the thing about logical errors is that we need a deeper understanding of what each program is doing. So just knowing the grammar of the programming language is not enough to introduce semantic errors. But yes, that will be an enhancement. But ours is currently aimed at just learning the syntax of any programming language. And although IDEs do detect syntax errors, when a programmer is learning a new language, we don't encourage them to resort to shortcuts like just using an IDE that corrects their errors. So like colleges usually give debugging exercises on papers and all that. So this is what we're automating here.
Yeah, okay. So logical is, for example, some simple things like replace a less than by a less than equal to somewhere, or a less than equal to by less than. If there is plus
Yeah.
with a constant, increase it by 1. Some very naive
Yeah, so
logical errors maybe can be injected, and
yeah, so some of those are being injected now because like you'll have to know what the program does to detect this error, but we haven't concentrated on logical errors as such. This is whatever can be done using the grammar.
right. There's one more question. There's one Jayashree Prasad who hasn't really got how exactly you inject erroneous code. How is injection of errors done in automatically inserted into the code?
So we injected errors by randomly playing around with the nodes of the program. So as you saw, we generated a parse tree, and then we can randomly either remove nodes, replace nodes, or add an extra node. And all of these will somehow mess up the syntax and generate errors.
And it won't be completely random because we need to have something which will mimic the way the user is making errors. So we make sure that we don't just replace a plus with minus, because that won't become a syntax error. So we make sure that they are being replaced by something which will create a syntactic error.
Right. So there's one last question. Are there any class of syntactic errors that you've not considered?
Yeah, so syntax errors that are specific to certain constructs haven't been considered. For example, like let's say like in switch case or something in a certain language, if there's no case within a switch, our program would not detect that. But otherwise, no.
Yeah. There are a few more questions, but I think we have, in the interest of time, I ask the questioners to contact the speakers directly. Thank you once again,
Sure.
Ramyani. It's for a nice.
We'll put our contacts in the chat.
Right, and they can connect with you directly, or you can look at the chat and connect with them and answer those questions. And yeah, thank you once again for
Thank you.
Yeah, the next talk is on a collaborative classroom by Yash Patil and his team. Over to you, Yash.
Hello everyone. Can you see my screen? Yes.
Yes, Yash, we can see your screen.
Okay. Yeah. Good. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yash, and along with Aishwarya, Yamini, and Professor Vidhu, I'm going to present the collaborative classroom tool. It's an innovative tool developed to improve the experience of learning how to code. To begin with, let's understand the different ways coding is taught. In the average university classroom, pre-written code snippets are shared with the students, and the purpose of that code is explained along with the syntax. Some instructors prefer to develop the code on the fly during the lecture, and arguably this method has its advantages. The student understands the thought process that goes behind writing a line of code, while also learning how the code can be debugged in case some errors arise. In such an arrangement, Students prefer to code alongside while taking notes simultaneously. This often leads to them missing out on a few key points, which we have experienced firsthand. Given the current situation with learning moving to online media, the instructor shares their screen over a video call and the student observes. Screen share and video calls consume a lot of bandwidth that might affect a student's learning if their internet connection is not strong. To alleviate these two issues, our tool implements the sharing of code through a text file that requires very less internet bandwidth. This enables us to reflect the code onto the student screen simultaneously. Each student can annotate their copy of the code with notes based on their individual understanding for future reference. Since we support multiple files, students don't need to depend on the instructor's screen share and can spend time looking at any piece of code whenever. The code is available as text to the students, allowing them to highlight lines they have not understood completely when the instructor requests for feedback. This feedback is consolidated as a graph that highlights to the instructor which lines of code most students are struggling with. A Q&A window allows students to ask questions whenever they want during the session without interrupting the instructor. The notes are embedded into the code files as comments next to the line and can be downloaded as a zip file along with the questions asked during the session. When it comes to the architecture, we employ a publisher-subscriber model where the instructor node pushes the file with incremental changes to a server to which all student nodes subscribe to. The tool implements these features as an Angular application that uses sockets and a node backend. This tech stack allows the tool to run on any device that supports most modern browsers. And now I'm going to show the demo. Um, okay, yes.
Yes, are you trying to run a video?
Yeah, I'm trying to run a video.
Yeah, so do one
share
thing.
sound,
When
okay.
you go to share screen, there are two check boxes at the bottom. So you have to
Yeah,
tick
got
box
it.
that.
Yeah, so I'll turn on the video now. Let me know if you get a sound. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the demo of our collaborative classroom tool. We're going to start off by logging in as an instructor. So once our instructor logs in and creates a session for the students to join, this is the screen that they see. And now I'm going to switch windows and log in as a student. And you can see the student's view as well over here. For the purpose of this demo, I printed out whose view we are seeing at the top. So now we can start coding by creating some files on the instructor side. So I'm going to create one file like this. And we can create multiple files like this in a simpler fashion. So just creating one more file. Now you can see that all the files that I'm creating by default have the C++ language option. We can change that by using the language dropdown and choose any of the options provided. Like for example, I'm going to be choosing Python here, and you can see that these files have been replicated on the student's interface as well. And now let's add some code to this file. I'm going to copy paste some code that I have on my local machine onto this editor. So this is in the second file. And you can see that file2.py has the same code on the student side as well. So I'm going to go back to the teacher's view and add some more code from another file. So now I'm adding some code into the file 1.cpp. And you can see that the code has been reflected over here as well. Now let's try running one of these files using the run option. And as you can see, we get the correct output for the code that we have written over here. Let's try changing it a bit. and try running it again. And we can see that the output is as we expected. Now, you may have noticed that the student and teacher can be on different files at the same time. The file that they want to view is totally up to them. To help students in case they want to keep track of which file the instructor is currently editing, we have added the instructor's current